Lesson 2 focuses on using the square root method again, but now when our quadratic is in standard form. So if you remember from a while back, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, the only time we can use the square root method when a quadratic is in standard form if there is no bx term, okay? All we have is something being squared and a constant. If we have this bx term, then we're going to have to use a different method, which we're going to learn about in the next few weeks. So you'll notice in that first equation that I gave you, that first example, we've got our x squared and we've got our constant. There's no term in the middle that has an x alone. So I'm going to take you through example 1, the steps for solving in standard form, and then I'll have you try a couple examples on your own. So step 1, just like step 1 for when we did the vertex form, we are going to substitute 0 for y. Because remember, we're still trying to find those roots, those x-intercepts, the zeros, the solutions, whatever you want to call them. We're just still doing the same thing here. Okay? So I'm going to plug 0 in for y. Step 2 is just like what we did before as well. We're going to add or subtract the constant to the other side of the equation. A constant is a number by itself, so I have to move this 12. And since it's being added, I have to do the opposite. I have to subtract 12 from both sides. So 0 minus 12 is negative 12, and I'm going to bring down what's left over. Step 3, I have to divide by the coefficient in front of x squared. So as you can see, we're still doing PEMDAS backwards, right? We took care of addition and subtraction. Now we're taking care of multiplication and division. So we're going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. Negative 12 divided by a negative 3 is a positive 4. And just like in our last one as well, we are going to have to square root both sides. So we're going to square root both sides and put plus minus in front of our answer. So square rooting gives us just x. Square root of 4 is 2, and I know I have 2 answers because remember, 2 times 2 is 4, but negative 2 times negative 2 also gives us a positive 4 because 2 negatives make a positive. So our answer is positive 2 and negative 2. You can write it like that, or if you actually want to write it out, you could put x equals 2, x equals negative 2. Either way would be just fine. So I think doing square root method here is a little bit easier because you don't have to break it up into 2 separate equations. So let's do another example together, and I will follow it step by step. So step 1, substitute 0 for y. And I'm going to rewrite the rest of the equation. Step 2, add or subtract the constant to the other side. The constant's the number by itself. It's added, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract. 0 minus 64 is negative 64. Okay, step 3, divide by the coefficient in front of x squared. So I have to divide both sides by a negative 4. Negative 64 divided by negative 4 is a positive 16. And last but not least, square root both sides and put plus minus in front of my answer. So the square root of 16 is a 4. We have to put plus or minus in front. So we can either leave it like that, or we can write it out. X equals 4, x equals negative 4. So I'd like you to try example 3 on your own and submit your answer when you've completed it. So hopefully you got it right, but let's walk through it just to make sure if you did not. So we have to substitute 0 with y. Step 2, add or subtract the constant. So I'm going to add 50 to both sides. So 50 equals 2x squared. divide by the coefficient in front of x squared, and sometimes there won't be a coefficient, so if there isn't, you just skip that step. Okay, so divide by 2 on both sides. 50 divided by 2 is 25. Take the square root of both sides to get rid of that exponent, and you'll get 5, but it has to be a plus and a minus 5. So those are my two answers, x equals 5 and x equals negative 5.